History was strange, not just because of wars or kings, but because of the punishments people created for ordinary people. And some of them were so bizarre, they almost sound fictional. But they were real, and for the people forced to endure them, they were terrifying. Number 1. The Scold's Bridle. If you enjoy arguing, talking a lot, or always having the last word, you should probably be grateful you were born in modern times. Because centuries ago, that behavior could get you locked inside something called the Scold's Bridle. This punishment was mostly used on women accused of gossiping, arguing, or speaking too loudly. Authorities called them scolds, and the punishment was designed to silence them publicly. The Scold's Bridle was a metal cage locked tightly around the head, but the worst part was hidden inside it. A sharp metal plate rested directly on the tongue. Every attempt to speak pushed the metal painfully into the mouth. Sometimes victims even bled from trying to talk. But pain was only part of the punishment. The real goal was humiliation. Victims were paraded through crowded streets while neighbors mocked them and laughed. In some towns, bells were attached to the mask to attract even more attention. The punishment turned public shame into entertainment, and honestly, it says a lot about the time period. People weren't just punished for crimes, sometimes they were punished simply for being annoying to society, and somehow that was considered justice. Number 2. The Drunkard's Cloak. Now, compared to the last punishment, this one might sound almost funny at first, until you imagine yourself inside it. The Drunkard's Cloak targeted people accused of public drunkenness. Instead of prison, some towns chose humiliation. The victim was forced to wear a massive wooden barrel with holes cut out for the arms and head. Then they were sent walking through public streets for everyone to see. People pointed, laughed, and publicly mocked them as they passed. The punishment itself usually wasn't physically painful, but psychologically, it was brutal. Imagine becoming the town's entertainment simply because you made a mistake in public. Authorities believed shame would discourage people from repeating the behavior. And honestly, they probably weren't completely wrong. Fear of embarrassment has controlled human behavior for centuries, even more effectively than fear itself. Number 3. The Stocks. And if you thought online comment sections were cruel, medieval crowds were much worse. The stocks became one of the most famous punishments in medieval Europe. The victim's head and hands were locked between heavy wooden boards. Once trapped, they could barely move. And then the crowd arrived. People gathered around specifically to mock the prisoner. Some threw rotten vegetables, others threw mud, garbage, or animal waste. And sometimes the situation became violent, because once the crowd turned cruel, the victim had absolutely no escape. Hours trapped in the stocks could become psychological torture. Hundreds of strangers laughing at you while you stood helpless in the center of town. And the worst part? The crowd often enjoyed it. Public punishment became public entertainment, which is honestly one of the darkest patterns repeated throughout history. Number 4. The Ducking Stool. Now, this next punishment somehow managed to combine humiliation, fear, and exhaustion all at once. The ducking stool was commonly used on people accused of disorderly behavior, especially women considered troublesome. The victim was strapped tightly into a wooden chair attached to a long beam. Then the chair was lowered repeatedly into water, sometimes rivers, sometimes filthy ponds, and in certain places, even sewage-filled water. The crowd watched the entire thing like a public performance. People laughed and cheered as the victim was repeatedly submerged underwater. And what made it terrifying was unpredictability. Victims never knew how long they would remain underwater before being pulled back up again. Just enough time to panic, then breathe, then panic again. And somehow, large crowds considered this normal entertainment. Number 5. Sin Eaters. And this final one might be the strangest of them all, because unlike the others, this punishment wasn't about humiliation, it was about fear of the afterlife. In parts of England and Wales, people believed a dead person's sins could be transferred into another human being. So, after someone died, food was placed on the body, usually bread. Then a person known as a sin eater would consume the food. People believed the sins of the dead passed into the eater, allowing the dead person's soul to enter heaven cleansed of wrongdoing. which means someone else was symbolically carrying the burden instead. The sin eater was usually poor and socially isolated, because while people needed them, they were also feared. Many believed the sin eater carried the spiritual weight of countless dead people. Imagine walking through your town knowing people saw you as spiritually contaminated, and yet they still came to you whenever someone died. It sounds unbelievable today, but the practice survived for some centuries, which proves something strange about human history. People will do almost anything if they believe it protects them from fear. History was brutal, bizarre, and sometimes unbelievably cruel. But what makes it even stranger is that many of these punishments were completely accepted by society at the time. What seems horrifying today once passed as normal public justice. And honestly, it makes you wonder which parts of modern society people centuries from now will look back at the same way. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more strange and disturbing stories from history.